Hi, and welcome back to our third mini lecture in the Historical Foundations of Management. So today what I want you to do is think about what the role of quantitative analysis is in today's management practices. And then what I want you to think about is what is the uniqueness about contingency thinking and the value chain in management. I'm going to talk about both of these in more detail. So first of all, what is the role of quantitative analysis in management today? What does it mean? So, quantitative approaches refer to the data in which we gather in order to plan, lead, control, and to organize. Right? So we're starting to work in an environment where there's big data. There's lots of data analytics out there that tells us what's happening in the environment. We can get this data from multiple areas, and our job from a management science perspective is to describe how these apply to our management problems today. Now we do this through a variety of ways. We can mathematically forecast what's going to happen. Now these are things like we make future projections that are useful in the planning process. So for example, I expect with the Commonwealth Games just gone, that I expect tourism in Australia to hopefully increase. And I'm going to measure that based on the number of people that come into Australia and the number of people that leave Australia. Now, that's a purely number-based forecast, right? Or for example, if we're looking at Dubai 2020 Expo, so the World Expo in Dubai in 2020, then what I'm going to say is the number of visitors to Dubai is going to significantly increase, and I'm going to need more tourist spots, more hotels, more accommodation. It's going to be great for my economy in this way, X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to be able to measure that. All right, but I also need to plan for that. So I can't just keep the city as is. I actually have to invest in complex projects to make that happen. So mathematical forecasting is used every day, and quantitative approaches really start to unpack how we use this. We can also use quantitative approaches through inventory modeling. All right, so this is where we're starting to say, okay, how many boxes of tissues do I need to get in from our suppliers in order to meet our consumer needs? For example, very simple example, if you are a Coles shop. So we're starting to count and we're starting to really model what our customer behaviour is like. For example, in flu season, we might need to order more tissues than we would normally order in non-flu season. So we're asking people to count in really quite methodical ways. So the role of quantitative analysis really came out of military purposes. So in World War II, when we started to need to quantify how many equipment or how much equipment we needed, or plan things a bit differently, that's where these things arose. So we start to take all these statistics from external bodies. We turn them into information, and remember our job as a manager is to interpret that information and apply it. And we create these future scenario plans on the basis of the information we receive. Now these words should resonate because forecast planning, our scenario planning, all of these things are things we do every day. All right, we talk about budgeting. We budget, we schedule, we do quality control, we do stock takes, and we count what comes in and we count what goes out. All right, so this is all part of quantitative analysis and quantitative measurement in management. We use economics to make decisions, such as costs, revenue, and return on investment. And these are things that, as a manager, are central for your ability to work out, am I being effective and efficient? Is my unit being effective and efficient, and how can we improve? It's about that feedback loop. So that's the quantitative approach. What we also find is that there's this approach called contingency thinking and the value chain. Now, what is a contingency approach? A contingency approach is logical because organizations and even units within the same organization are diverse, which means that there is no one size fits all. It's commonly known as a situational approach. But so basically, we match the way in which we respond to our problems on to different situations. So if something is going to happen, what are we going to do next? Okay, so think about our contingency approach to planning for disasters. At the moment, there's lots of floods in North Queensland. How does an organisation continue its operations effectively and efficiently when part of the organisation is in chaos? That's called the contingency approach, right? Now, there's no one universal application of management principles. And that's, I guess, the important element of the contingency approach, because what it says is these things are really important to management. Now, let's list them all. But every organisation is different, and therefore we need to tailor these approaches. And that's important. And that's what contingency approach is all about. When it comes to the value chain, we're referring to the sequence of activities that transform materials into finished products. So if we're looking back at that open system, we're looking at the transformation process in that middle. So we have our resource inputs, the transformation that happens, and then the output, right? So the value chain is a sequence of activities that exist in that middle to transform materials into finished products. When it comes to quality and performance excellence, we need to learn how we monitor that and how we measure that to get a better outcome, right? Because feedback comes from our consumers or our customers. So in total quality management, so total quality management was this theory that was produced from the manufacturing industry. And what they said was we need to build quality in every aspect of our organization. So from the initial acquisition of resources through to the transformation process and work systems, and to how we get them to the customers. And if we're going to do total quality management, it's about being focused on how we improve efficiency and effectiveness throughout the whole system. So let's have a look at the value chain. So we start with resources. Then we move into materials received and organisation is used. Then we move to people and technology creating the products, to the finished product distributed, and the customers then give us feedback and use, right? So the value chain is important because everything that happens in management happens in this chain, okay? So it's really important that you get your head around what the value chain is when we're starting to refer to how that may change things. All right, and that's it for our mini lectures on the quantitative approach. And I guess the important things about the quantitative approach and the contingency approach is that they all have their places, as does all of our theories when it comes to the history of management. We learned from the classical approaches, we learned from the behavioural approaches, and we learned from the quantitative and the contingency analysis process. And we take the best forward. As we go through this trimester or study period or semester, what we tend to do is start to draw on all of these elements. So you will hear these terms come back over and over again, and I really want you to critically analyse, is this appropriate still today, and how can we improve it? Because that's what you're here for. I look forward to seeing you in later mini lectures. Thank you for listening.